Hello friends, it is I, again, making another video that's totally unscripted and I have no idea what I'm going to say, but that's okay, I just beat the game. So let's talk about Cuphead. Obviously, everyone's talking about Cuphead and I have to too, because how could I not? This game is like blowing everybody's mind, mine included, even though I knew exactly what I was getting into going into it. So, if you're really out of the loop, if you're not into video games at all, because I assume that most people who are, if not all people that are, have seen or heard of this game before. It's been in development for like 4 years, probably longer than that, because I think the first demo came out like at least 4 years ago. It's a game called Cuphead, and its style and its look is very reminiscent to 1930s cartoons. A very specific kind, which I am totally blanking on the name of, which I'm going to look up because I'm extremely embarrassed. Let's see, what era was... Oh, Max Fleischer or whatever, the guy that made Betty Boop and all them. It looks just like all of his stuff, and it looks great. It looks amazing. It literally looks so flippin' good, and I cannot believe it. So basically, the game is going for that really highly stylized old look of cartoons, and it, in my opinion, aesthetically, it is the most accurately portrayed aesthetic I have ever seen in a video game. Like, you know, video games go for the old Mega Man look, or, you know, the retro game look, or whatever. That blows all of these out of the water in terms of accuracy. I've seen some games that nail NES style, nail Super Nintendo style, Freedom Planet nails the Sega Genesis style, you know, stuff like that. I have never seen something nail such an aesthetic, even in terms of media. I have never seen a cartoon do it this well. I've never seen a movie do it this well. I have legitimately never seen something capture something so perfectly. And granted, what we've seen of old cartoons, I've seen a lot of old cartoons, and I can vouch that in terms of just style and the structure it's animated in, the way everything, most things, there are a few pieces of animation in the game that don't necessarily line up with everything, and they're far from in between, and I don't even think most people would notice. Coming from somebody who's borderline studied animation for most of my life, I'd say. When I was a little kid, I was very interested in old style animation. Not to be pretentious about this, but I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of animation, so obviously some things, that the tiniest little things that stick out, but a lot of the way things animate and just general rule of thumb of animation back then was applied now, which isn't necessarily the case always with normal animation. It's nice to see it like that. And I knew all this stuff that I'm talking about now, I knew going into the game. I was very much aware it was going to look amazing. I was very much aware that it was probably going to blow me away. And I was very much aware that it was going to be the most accurate thing ever. A few little things I did not know. I didn't know they were actually going to add a film grain. Sometimes it's a little cheesy to add the kind of messed up film grain look. And in my opinion, it looks really good in that game. They actually nailed the subtlety to it. It's not over the top, but it does look legitimate, and it kind of keeps the screen looking a certain tint too, a certain shade. It's nice. Everything kind of looks a little more muted because of it, and it adds a lot. I didn't think they were actually going to go through with that. I thought they were just going to keep it clean, but nope. It looks like basically a, and it's funny because it's not that extreme where it looks like a film that was made in the 30s now. It looks more like what a film might have looked like in the 30s. Not, after the years of degrading on it. Maybe after. I don't know what they look like back then. No one knows besides the people that saw them, which aren't many people left who saw them like that. And what else was I just gonna say? And the other thing was the music. I had no idea. I had a feeling they were gonna try to capture that old sound and stuff, but they really did a good job. Even to a point where they don't take any liberties. That's what I love about this game too. They don't sacrifice anything gameplay-wise. But aesthetically, they sacrificed a lot. They made all the noise muffled, so it sounds like an old, like, recording, which is way over the you needed to do. Like, especially a lot of companies and stuff wouldn't really want you to do that, because they wouldn't want you to take away from the quality of the music or the sound or anything in between. But they didn't give a shit. They wanted to look as aesthetically accurate as possible, which I say a lot. And on top of this, all this stuff put together, it looks really good. It still looks like, I mean, obviously it looks good, but it like is impressive. It's impressive animation. And there's a few other things that I'll talk about when I get more into the gameplay aspect. But I'm sure this 5 minutes of gushing has explained it enough. This game is near masterpiece levels of visual look. And I don't know, like, I guess you could argue that, but in my opinion, even if you're not into the style, even if you're just like ugh, like old cartoons don't look good, or you know, I'm not big on that flashy animation, I'm not huge on that, you can't knock the effort. This shit is painstaking. There is no easy way around this kind of animation. Every frame you're seeing is very, very meticulously animated and drawn, and I've looked at the animations thoroughly. You see them all the time. The game is not easy, so you spend a lot of time seeing them. And it's not easy to capture that, and especially the way it's colored, the way everything moves. Just like it's something that nobody really talks about, because everyone's just like, it looks great, and I'm like, yeah, and like it looks accurate, yeah, but like, God, it's hard to explain. It's just the way things move is very different than techniques that normally would be taught now in animation. Things that normally would be standard are kind of like not pushed to the side, but almost like okay, yeah, like this is a way you can animate, I don't know, legs or something, and they're like, well, this is the way they did it back then, so I'm gonna do it this way, or you know, certain little things like that. It's hard to explain. There's a lot of little things, and I love, and I've gushed about this before, but I love little things in video games. That's what makes me so happy when I play a video game, is all the little touches, all the little moments, all the little satisfactions. Remember I was talking about Metroid and all the little satisfaction-y moments. It all links together. But that's the thing, all the little things in this game make it so cool and so fun to just watch in action. This is a game that I personally think, yeah, most people I think should play it, but even watching it is still like, you don't get the same experience, obviously, but you don't get to play it. But it is a really fun game just to look at. It's just a marvel. It literally is something special. And yeah, I think I'm gushing enough about that. Let's talk about the game, actually, because that was another thing I was afraid of when the game was coming out was, yeah, it looks great. It looks friggin' fantastic. Oh, holy shit. But will the actual gameplay hold up? Because, you know, sometimes a lot of games do this and then the actual mechanics kind of take a step backwards. The only game I've seen do it really well with hand-drawn graphics like actual hand-drawn graphics like that is Skullgirls. Skullgirls really didn't take much away from its gameplay when they made the animation, and it was almost like to prove that could be done. I kind of remember like thinking that when I first got Skullgirls, I was like, there's no like, it's not detracting from anything, it's still like a competent fighting game, and all the moves are like framed well and, you know, and are programmed well even in the animation matches. And I was like, this is actual proof that can be done well, because there are some games where it feels kind of like a struggle sometimes, like they did the animations first or it didn't line up, so they had to change the way something, and it's just like, and this is the prime example of a game that would do that. Like, sure, this looks great, but what about the hitbox on it? Like, is that going to be accurate? Is that going to be fun to deal with? Like, you know, this is still a video game. Luckily, it is extremely solid. I'll say that it's not like the best video game ever made. There are a fair amount of glitches. It's not perfect. There are definitely problems with the way the game is balanced sometimes. I don't think it's bad at all. I don't think it's even mediocre. I'd call it good. Like, gameplay wise, it probably would get like an 8 in my opinion out of 10, but then, you know, you add on the visual stuff and it's like, oh, it's a 10 out of 10. I don't know. But gameplay wise, it's really solid and really fun. It's also really hard. I did not expect that. You know, like, it's a co-op game, and apparently the co-op is just as hard. But I was like going into single player being like, this might be a little tough if it's actually made for co-op. But tougher than I thought. It actually really put me to the test. It's been a long time since I've played a video game that has actually made me have to put it down because I was so stuck on a boss. And that's the cool thing too with this, is that one thing I did not know going into it, I must have not really looked much up about the gameplay, was how the game is structured. So basically, if you haven't heard, you're on like a map screen, and then you have all these different locations you can go to, and you just can, you know, start the levels. They're all just different levels. And you can buy items and stuff like that. But when I was looking at gameplay, for some reason I was thinking they were all, you know, run and gun Contra level kind of things, you know, just like A to B Contra level sort of structure. Not at all. There's only like 4 or 5 of those in the entire game. The actual game is all boss fights, actually. It's like 90% boss fights, and I actually really like this. A lot of people seem to use the detractor kind of thing, saying, oh, it's just a boss rush, and it's like, no, that's not really like the case, because a boss rush is sort of like a game structured around, or like a mode structured around the fact that you have to survive bosses for as long as you can, or get as far as you can. This game, it wants you to learn bosses. It wants you to learn bosses like you'd learn a level in a platformer. It's not really trying to just, I don't know, it's different. It doesn't feel, I mean, bosses and platformers like this are basically little levels. If you ever faced a boss with multiple phases, it's just like a little level. It's like, you know, you're memorizing patterns and figuring it out and beating the boss, just like you beat a level. And to be fair, the boss fights are significantly more fun than the run and gun levels, so there's a ton of boss fights. And one other thing that people tend not to really mention is the boss fights. It's perfect. It's actually perfect for this game because it shows off the amazing animation constantly. You're constantly in front of that boss, so you're constantly seeing how much amazing time and effort was put into this animation. And to be fair, they could have taken that easy step and made a run and gun shooter with like Contra and had, you know, repeating enemies constantly and maybe only like 10 bosses, but instead they made, what is it, like 20 something levels? Like, it's ridiculous. There's a lot of really intense content in this game in terms of, like, I don't know, work that was put into it. It's solid, and there's a few little gameplay concepts that are original, and it's fun. Again, another thing that was going to be bothersome, I guess, for me, was that I didn't think it was going to be very original. I thought maybe there wouldn't really be any new concepts. It would literally just be like Alien Hominid, Contra, you know, the run and gun kind of shooter genre, Metal Sluggy. And I was like, I'm probably not going to see anything really new. But there actually was a good amount of new concepts added to this game. One thing that was really cool was the parry system, which isn't really a parry. I don't really know what to call it. It's sort of like a bounce. Basically, if you jump midair, you press A again, you do a little flippy thing, and the little flippy thing, if you, anything pink in the game, actually like bright pink, you can bounce off of. You just won't take damage, you'll just bounce right off of it. You're still vulnerable after you've bounced, but it's basically, it gives you an extra jump in some cases. There's one level where it's like, you really have to fucking be crazy with it. It's like one of the run and gun levels. There's a lot of boss fights where they'll shoot like maybe an arc of like 5 bullets and one of them is pink, so you can like bounce off of that one or something. There's like a stampede of things going by and like one of them is pink, so you have to jump and bounce off of the pink one, you know what I mean? Like, it's really clever the way they do it, and they, by the end of the game, you have to use it. Like, it's not just a choice, like it's mandatory to beating that game. Same with the dash. You have a dash in the game, and it's actually extremely important to learn how that dash works. They did not hold your hand throughout this game. There's no shortcuts. You do things the way they want you to do them. And along with that, there's actually a pretty cool system of upgrades. Not really upgrades, but kind of replacements to your gun. You can change your normal little P-shot to like a scatter shot that does less damage, but like, or is closer range, but does more damage because it hits more. There's one that's like a ball that bounces and has really low fire rate, but it does a lot of damage, you know, stuff like that. And it's actually really fun because a lot of the bosses obviously were designed in mind to be like kind of the way to beat them was with a specific item. So like some bosses are on the ground, so the best way to beat them is definitely with the, you know, fucking the one that bounces, because if you have high ground, it just destroys them. And it's cool because you get to think about that kind of stuff throughout the game, and it actually keeps it interesting. But besides that, I mean, like, the whole idea of fighting the bosses and stuff is really clever. Most bosses have like 5 phases, and I like how the bosses don't have visible health. You don't know how much damage you're doing to them until you until you died, and it shows you how far you've gotten. It's a really kind of like almost like cynical way of like telling you how far you've been. It's kind of like a slap in the face. It's fun though. Like I will say it from my gamer hands, my seasoned gamer hands. It's pretty tough. It's a pretty tough game. Definitely took me a while. I was getting a little frustrated. Not like, it never really does feel like your fault. I know everyone's been saying that, and like it's such a gamer buzzword kind of thing. It's like, it's fair but hard, like Dark Souls. I don't think Dark Souls is that case, but whatever. It is fair though. It doesn't really feel like, because everything feels like it's designed around your moveset. Like nothing feels like you're dead because you didn't see it coming. Everything kind of has like a preemptive noise or look to everything. Some of them's fast. Some of them you won't learn your first time. You will get killed, and that's fine. I mean, like they expect you to, but there's no reason you can't learn it. Basically, there's a few moments that I will say that things were a little too hectic and like did not feel very like plausible. Like you could get cornered easily in a lot of stages, and like that kind of becomes RNG at that point. I think that game would have really benefited from everything being on a pattern, and like some things were RNG, some things followed you, and I'm not a big fan of like homing on missiles and stuff in games like that, just because it just leads to being cornered. It leads to, especially if they're doing other things during it, it really does lead to a lot of problems. One of the fights, you're fighting like a ghost guy, and he shoots these like ghosts that like follow you. What a pain in the ass. Like those things really were like, it took out a lot from that boss fight, just because I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was a really great challenge. It just felt like you had to somehow get lucky and make sure that the ghosts were timed well or something. And sometimes the boss patterns are like, they do a certain move, but it's never preemptive. It's not like they do a certain move in this order. It's like they have a chance of doing one of these moves, and sometimes some of the moves are easier than others to dodge, and everyone has moves they have an easier time dodging than others, so sometimes you just get a good run and you get the moves that you were good at dodging. But that's about it. I think that's all I can really talk about Cuphead. I just beat it like a few, like right before I recorded this. I was stuck on the final level, so I took a break for a day and just went back and beat it on my second try. Pro tip, I guess, if you're it never really applied to me until now. A lot of people say this, but it's a pretty good idea. If you're stuck somewhere and it's getting frustrating, just stop for a bit and go back to it. It actually does help a little bit, calms you down, kind of tenses, like loosens your nerves a little bit, it gets you a little loose in the game. It's nice. I highly recommend the game. It's $20 on Steam, and I think it's on Xbox One too, but nobody owns that console, so just get on Steam. Hopefully they'll make like a physical version. I would buy a fucking physical version of this game like immediately. It could be $1 million. I don't give a crap. I will buy it. Maybe Limited Run Games will do it or something. Anyway, thank you for watching. I totally recommend Cuphead. It is probably one of the best games I've played this year, if not the best. There's a lot of games coming out soon, so I hope to make these my thoughts videos on at least some of the games that are coming out. I actually have a lot of fun doing this, kind of just picking up my microphone right after I beat a game and trying to talk about it. Hat in Time comes out on Thursday, and that game I've been waiting for since 2014, apparently. February 2014, I pre-ordered that game, and I think the Kickstarter was from 2013. So that game's been in development hell for quite a while. Not really hell. They probably been having fun making it. I feel like that was a poor choice of words. It's been in development for a while. So I can't wait for that game. So maybe I'll talk about that. I'm excited for it, and I played the beta, so. But whatever. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.
Mr. King Dice, I'm the gamest in the land. I never play nice, I'm the devil's right.